Hello and welcome back to the Edge of Eternities limited set review. In this video, we're talking about the red cards. If you haven't been to one of these set reviews before, there are 5 tiers that I use to evaluate cards that are based loosely around when I would expect to pick them in draft. It's a draft focused set review. Tier 1, of course, is the best. Tier 5 is the worst if you need a little more detail about the tiers and sort of, what they're supposed to mean. Um, it's all a little bit fluid. It's a little bit loose. There's a little bit of, ambiguity there. Um, so we're just really trying to get our way through the cards and talk about them and just see how they interact and maybe find some new things along the way. If you like that type of content, feel free to subscribe. There will be more set review content for every arena available limited set. I'm not doing all of them. I can't promise everything, but um, let's get started with Bombard with 2 and a red for an instant. Deals 4 damage to target creature. So we've basically seen this be good since Strixhaven. The Strixhaven 3 mana deal 4 that was an instant to creature. That card was good. I think there was other text on that card. I forget what the text was, but this is basically the same card. Power creep does exist. Strixhaven was like 3 years ago at this point, so it might even have been longer. I don't know. I didn't actually play Strixhaven when it was live. It was slightly before my time. I have played it, but it's just I didn't play it when it was current. So did I really play it then? No, I probably really didn't. I kind of am washed. But yeah, these 3 mana deal 4s to a creature have pretty much just been good. Is tier 2 kind of aggressive? You could say that. I just removal in general is always premium, so it's going to be hard for me to think that this is going to be um, bad. So yeah, that's really the take. Cut propulsion. Well, this one we'll see. Cut propulsion 2 in a red for an instant. Target creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. If that creature has flying, it deals twice that much damage instead. So I'm going to talk this one through. Tier 4 is how it's rated currently. I think I'm probably going to move it up. The thing is, there are a lot of 2-drops and creatures in the set in general that have higher toughness than they do power. And this is going to, there's just a lot of that going on. And so I'm worried that this is just going to not actually kill the thing that you want enough of the time that you're going to be upset about it. Like, yes, sometimes it can deal 4 damage. I mean, think about it though, right? Like this just deals 4. Just deals 4 damage. For this to deal 4 damage, the creature has to have 4 power, which is not most creatures don't have 4 power. So really the extra equity you're getting off of this is that it deals if your opponent has like a 3/5 flyer, this kills it and this doesn't. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not I wouldn't say that I'm excited about it. Debris Field Crusher. 4 and red, 1/5 spacecraft. When it enters, it deals 3 damage to any target, and at 8 or more charge counters, it's a 1/5 with flying, and it has 1 and a red to give it +2/+0 until end of turn. This is kind of like whatever. I mean, it is a 5 mana, like, permanent that deals 3 damage to something. It's an artifact. It's hard for that to be, like, truly unplayably bad. It's gonna be, I mean, tier 3 might even be a little aggressively high. It's hard for me not to want this to be high. I do think spacecraft have problems like vehicles do where you can have too many of them. There is such a thing as too many spaceships in your deck, too many ships in the kitchen or whatever. And the thing that this flips into is not great. The thing that I'm also grappling with though is that the first spacecraft being in play is really, really important because there's a lot of things in the set that care about you having the ability to just tap your own stuff down. And we've seen that ability to just like tap your own stuff be pretty useful. It just kind of has a lot of uses in limited. So it's kind of hard to evaluate the spacecraft objectively. Like I'm trying to give a more like holistic rating when I do the tiers like this. It's like the whole reason I do it instead of doing the specific like A through F scale like everybody else. is that it's supposed to be a little bit more like, okay, when would I actually take this? But the spacecraft are so conditional because the first one is so good. But once you have like four of them, they start to be like bad again. So it's kind of like the second copy of this card is basically unplayable, I think. Like you basically can't ever pick it. But the first copy is like really good, especially if you don't have any other spacecraft. So I'm kind of in the middle on the rating here. I think its win rate's going to actually be lower than this cuz like it's so with that logic, like, following that logic, I should move this down to tier 4 because I'm saying it's a 5 drop that's not premium and there are other things that you're likely to get in the same slot that do the like allow you to tap stuff down thing better. So I think I will actually move it down, and maybe that'll be too hot of a take. Yeah, so we've moved it to tier 4. It just is. It's like I don't know. I'm not that excited about it. Devastating Onslaught, XX red sorcery. Create X tokens that are copies of target artifact or creature you control. Those tokens gain haste until end of turn. Sacrifice them in the beginning of the next end step. These like copy type effects that give haste to things, you'd need to spend 5 mana to get 2 copies, which is like an okay rate in some spots, but I don't really think this is something you're going to be doing ever. It's way too slow. Drill too deep. One in red instant, choose one. Put 5 charge counters on target spacecraft or planet you control or destroy target artifact. There's going to be a lot of artifacts in the set. The problem is all the artifacts have ETBs for the most part, or at least all the good ones are going to have ETBs, and so you're not going to feel great about casting the destroy target artifact side. The charge counters on the spacecraft, um, they're just not very good. Like, it's not a very good thing to do. Like, 5 charge counters is not enough. Most of them need 7 or 8 to do anything, and so you could say, okay, well, no. I'm talking myself into this actually because you could like, oh wait, no, actually, no, hold on. This is actually sick because you can block. Oh, no. That's why this is only 5. Is because if you have like 3 counters on something, and then you could cast this, targeting your own thing, and then it can now block. Wow. Actually, that's actually good enough that I'm gonna move it up. At least for now, I'm gonna move it up. Because like I said, there are going to be artifact targets. You do. It's another thing that it's like, okay, well, how many spacecraft are actually in your deck? And it's like, well, hopefully like 4 exactly, and not any more and not any less, right? If you have exactly 4 spacecraft in your deck, then great. And if you have any other number, then you're really sad, just in general. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Frontline War Rager, 2 in a red, 2/3 at the beginning of your end step. If you control 2 or more tapped creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. We've just seen these things that require something to grow, and they start as a 2/3 be really bad for a really long time. This one's easier to enable than some, but they kind of just never really work. Because you think about it, right? In your average game of Limited, you play a 2-drop on 2, you play this on 3, it doesn't do anything, and then you're just behind. So that's like you can think about the cool like, oh, on turn 5 I play this and another creature in the tap, but like it's turn 5. Like things have progressed at this point. There's other stuff going on. The game isn't about this anymore, right? So like it just is not relevant when it needs to be relevant. Full bore, single red, instant. Target creature gets +3/+2 until end of turn. If that creature was cast for its warp cost, it also gains trample and haste until end of turn. So this is a really powerful trick, actually. 1 mana +3/+2 is just good. It's just a good thing to get. And then you can also do this like cool combo-y warp thing where you warp in a creature, and the warp creatures are pretty big. Like you could on turn 4, there's some like 3 mana warps plus this. There's like specifically like the 5/5 like jellyfish in blue comes to mind. There's other things that are kind of big. Um, there's going to be some insane stuff that you can do with this. Now, the reason it's in tier 3 is that combat tricks, very similar to like 5 drops, have a ceiling of how high you can realistically pick them. This one was close. You could even argue that it should be higher. This plays well with the best set mechanic, which is warp, and that's usually a good sign for how good the card is going to be. I think I'm still tempering my expectations because it is a combat trick that provides no additional value. It is just a trick, right? It just is, hey, this is damage. But it's a really good rate. The thing is, like giant growth in red is like right? So this you do have to be getting extra value from the warp haste, and I think I've accounted for that here. Galvanizing saw ship, 5 in a red, 6/5 spacecraft, and it only requires 3 charge counters to make it have flying and haste. I really don't like this, and even though I talked a lot about like, oh, I really like just having a spacecraft is so good. Not having a 6 mana one's not really what I want. As we saw earlier, there's incidental artifact hate in the set in various places, including red. And my 6 mana 6/5 flyer with haste, which is a really good rate, needs to have a creature in play for it to do anything. Like, it's just a 6 mana 6/5 flyer if you don't have the ability to give it haste, right? And then if you're giving it haste, you're basically crewing it, which is good. It is good. Like, when on turn 6 you go, I'm going to cast this and attack. That's good. It's a 6 drop though. I guess the one thing to think about is red is a color that gets some amount, like a little bit more lander tokens. So you could say I can get to turn 6 faster or to 6 mana faster, and that's true. So maybe this is just, you could think about this as costing 5-ish because there's a lot of ways to ramp in the set. You still gotta draw the lands and cast them on time, and your opponent still has to like not have a removal spell. Your opponent having a removal spell is still pretty bad with this, right? Like you play it on 6, try to attack, they kill it. You're pretty bad. There are a lot of the removal is sorcery speed, but there are a decent amount of instants too. Bounce spells. Yeah, I'm just off this. It could surprise me. It does have haste, but we've just kind of seen these style of cards be kind of bad for a bit now. Like these big things with haste that need like a little bit of help. They just tend to not be as good as they sort of read. And I'm wary about that with this card at the moment. Invasive maneuvers. 1 and a red, instant. It deals 3 damage to target creature. It deals 5 damage instead if you control a spacecraft. So again, with the like incidental hate for stuff like this, like we have a 2 mana spell that can remove this. Now, it's not always going to be able to do that, but the times that it is, it's just game losing, right? So I mean, this card's just the nuts. Also, 2 mana deal 3. In a lot of games, I would say like at least half of the game states, this is gonna be dealing 5, which is basically insane. Like, you know, it only really matters that it deals 3 on turn 2, right? So, like, before you play your spacecraft, which is turn 2, it's dealing 3, and that's usually enough to kill everything. But later on in the game, you actually can kill others. Like, this card is just insane. Like, this is just the nuts. I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about it. Cav Landseeker, 3 in a red, 4/3 menace. When it enters, create a lander token. At the beginning of the end step on your next turn, sacrifice that token. They're trying really hard to like find new ways to word that so that it's easier to like understand. They still haven't they got to keep digging. They haven't found it yet. Um but I actually don't mind this. So the one thing of course is that you have to sacrifice the lander immediately, or not immediately, but within 2 turns. And that's not great, but there's so many ways to do that I think it's going to basically play out as 4 mana 4/3 menace, make a lander token. Um, you're like sacrificing the lander token is going to be pretty. Like I think you're gonna just do it, and even though it may cause you to do something a little bit worse than what you were gonna do, the fact that you're getting the extra land is worth it. 4 mana 4/3 menace is a bad stat line, but it does give you additional value, and I'm respecting that. Caveron Harrier, 1 in red for a 2/1. Whenever this creature attacks, you may pay 2 colorless mana. When you do, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token that's tapped and attacking. Sacrifice that token at the end of combat. So it's a solid 1-drop. It's an artifact. It's got types, whatever. It's a 1-drop that gives you something to do on turn 2. The thing that you're doing on turn 2 is medium, to say the least. You know, you're not super excited about that. It's kind of like the fact that this has to attack specifically, and it's not like whenever you attack. That would have been very strong if it had been like a whenever you attack, it does something. That would have been cool. But I don't. 1-drops are more useful in this set than they are in some sets because they can station the spacecrafts later on in the game. So the 2-power 1-drop, like the Savannah Lions, is maybe a little bit better than it would be in your average set. But it's pretty bad in your average set. So I'm leaving this in tier 3, and we'll see if the artifact stuff is enough for it to move up. Kavarian Skywarden, 4 and a red for a 4/5 with reach. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Unfortunately, this will not be living up to the legacy of the Thunderhead Gunner. Thunderhead Gunner, one of the best, versions of this card of all time. This is going to be considerably worse than Thunderhead Gunner. I still think it's okay. The void ability is something that matters. It will happen on about half of the turns of the game, at least, so it's going to be growing. It's probably not going to happen that frequently the turn you cast this, once people figure out that against red and black decks, you just shouldn't really block as much because they have void. Kavarian Turbodrone. 2 in a red, 2/3. You can tap it to give target creature you control +1/+1 and haste until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. These effects are never good. They're just never good. I could put this in tier 5. It's an artifact. The thing that makes me want to not put it in tier 5 is that it's an artifact, but it's bad. It's really bad. It's not good. It does. You know what? It does tap itself, which is, you know what? That's enough for it to be something. And that is a thing in like red white specifically. So like that's enough. That's enough for it to be something. I don't like it, but it's something. Litho Breaking. 2 in a red, instant. Create a land or token. Then you may sacrifice an artifact. When you do, this deals 2 damage to each creature. So this is a strange one, right? If you have artifact creatures, it's kind of a thing. I'm kind of curious to see how this one plays out. Because sometimes it's just 3 mana, do the whatever it's, I don't even know, Pyroclasm, right? And then sometimes it's 3 mana Pyroclasm, but you also get a lander because one of your creatures is an artifact, and you sacrifice the creature, and then this can just kill the other creatures. So I'm curious. I'm interested to see how this goes. Not optimistic about this style of effect usually, but it's gonna kind of be format dependent. There's a lot, unfortunately for this card, there's a lot of 2/3s for 2 in this set, so I do think it's maybe gonna have a hard time finding any relevance. Melded Moxite. 1 in a red artifact. When this artifact enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. You can pay 3 and sacrifice it to create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. Looks good to me. You know, it's got types, it's doing the discard thing. Usually these discard things with extra effects are good. This one even has a buyout for itself, which it probably doesn't even need, but it does need that because we've seen it not. The ones that don't have been pretty bad. But, yeah, I like it. When it sacrifices itself, it still makes an artifact, so that's something too. Memorial Team Leader. 3 in a red, 4/3. During your turn, other creatures you control get +1/+0, and it has warp for 1 in a red. I really like this. The warp effect is not transformational, but it's nice, right? You're getting a 4/3, and The other creatures are bigger for the turn, and then eventually you just cast it. It's not a warp that you're going to just play on turn 2, but double spelling is good, and this allows you to double spell more. That's kind of as simple as that's why like warp anything with warp on it, I'm looking at and I'm like, it's gonna be hard for me to move it down. Even though this warp doesn't give you necessarily value, it's giving you whatever. I've only put this in tier 3 because the body is so bad, right? It is 4 mana for a 4/3. Don't love that. Um, yeah. Memorial Vault. 3 in red artifact. You can tap it and sacrifice another artifact. Exile the top X cards of your library. Where X is 1 plus the mana value of that sacrifice artifact. You may play those cards this turn. So at some point during this format, there's going to be a collection of people. There's going to be a collection of individuals that will be telling you that this card is good. Those people might be right, to be honest with you. It seems unlikely to me that they are going to be, but whether this card is good or it's the worst card of all time, there will be people that are telling you that it's good. Um, I'm starting on the side of not very good. It's a 4 mana don't do anything, which is pretty bad. Uh, yeah, it does work really well with the blue artifact thing, like that sacrifices that can sacrifice to do stuff, and the red thing that we just saw that like does something similar. It's good with those. Um, maybe we should be a little more optimistic. I think tier 5 is a little too pessimistic. I think, though the problem is the turn you play it, it's doing nothing, right? And then you have to sacrifice stuff. But you're getting 1 plus. I thought you were just getting the mana value. No, you're getting 1 plus. Play those cards this turn. Like, let's think it through, right? Turn 4, you play this. It does nothing. Your opponent hits you in the face for 8 or whatever. Turn 5, you sack something. You get to draw a card and a half. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm skeptical. Tier 5 is probably too low, but I don't love it. I'm gonna move up to tier 4, and that's gonna be generous. I can only hope that my generosity's been noted. Anyway, on to modular modifier or molecular modifier. 2 in a red, 2/2 at the beginning of combat on your turn. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. So we just had this in Most Valuable Slayer and Duskmourn, and it was really overrated early. People thought it was like the best red common. Like people were hot on that card, and it turned out to just be kind of okay. And this is actually, I think, worse than that card for a couple of reasons. One, a 3 mana 2/2 is a worse stat line than a 4 mana 2/4, just in general. So that's bad. Now it does have make up for that a little bit with the fact that it is an artifact, but the dying to shock for 3 mana effect is pretty bad. Um, I've still rated it as okay because it does enable attacks well, and it also like you don't have to attack to get value out of the +1/+0. You can use it to station stuff, and that's cool, but not a card that I'm especially excited about. Nebula Dragon, 6 in a red, 4/4 flying. When it enters, it deals 3 damage to any target. I don't mind this. I just don't think it's a priority, right? It's a big thing. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad card. I'm just saying I wouldn't take it early in the draft. You are going to want to get this late. But I think, assuming that you're ramping, you're making lander tokens at a frequent rate, um, this thing's going to be pretty good. You really have to be able to cast it, though, so I'm not rating it especially high. Nova Hellkite, 3 red red 4/5 flying haste. When it enters, it deals 1 damage to target creature an opponent controls, and you can warp it for 2 in a red. I love this. This is a great card. Having access to just like a 3 mana ping something it's something you really appreciate when you have it, right? You don't. It's not a good rate. 3 mana to deal 1 damage is not a good rate, but when you want it, it's really nice to have. This actually has. Wait, hold on. Oh no, then you can just attack with this with the warp. This is the nuts then. I didn't even remember that you could like actually this thing. The warp stuff I'm basically treating as just it has the ETB. This one actually gets to attack. Okay, well this is even better than I thought, and I already thought it was nuts. So yeah, this is crazy good. Obviously, then this might be the best card in the set. Then this is you're getting 4 damage and a ping, and then you're getting another 4 damage into ping without your opponent really being able to interact with it easily, without them holding up a bunch of mana, and then you can just play other stuff, right? And they're just kind of sitting there like, well, I sure hope they play this dragon, right? And it's just you just don't want to. You just don't want to do that. It's just, yeah, I mean, that's just insanely good. Orbital Plunge. 3 in a red, sorcery. It deals, oh, sorcery. I need to move this back down. It deals 6 damage to target creature. If excess damage was dealt this way, create a land or token. I thought this was, I for some reason thought this was an instant. I need to move it down. I think this is worse than the Convoke Black removal spell, which is why I moved it down. Even though it's just like they're both sorceries, just the fact that Convoke allows you to just cast it for cheaper is like actually a thing. This, I mean, doing 6 to something and getting excess damage and making a lander token is really strong. The problem is sorcery speed removal is just it's gotten worse and worse and worse over time. So I just like how many of these can you actually play in your deck? 2, maybe. I don't think you can play 3 because then you're playing too much sorcery speed removal. Like you can play premium sorcery speed removal in your deck, but it's so much less valuable because there's not as many slots where you can really play it. Because you just need instant speed interaction, really. At least I do. I'll tell you, I do. Oreplate Pangolin. 1 and a red for a 2/2. When an artifact enters, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. I actually really like this 2 drop. So it is an artifact itself. And then it kind of like plays really well if you get like 6 copies of it, because you can just go like Pangolin into Pangolin, and then it's a 3/3 on 2. And like you just keep play like you can just keep playing them, and then you know what I mean? So like you could just go like Pangolin on 2, Pangolin on 3, Pangolin on 4, and then you have a 4/4, 3/3, and a 2/2. Like that's kind of insane. So like this actually plays like insanely well with itself, interestingly. It's also I think just a good 2 drop, right? You're just gonna have artifacts entering the battlefield, and this thing's gonna be a threat. Like this thing, it grows. Now the fact you have to pay mana is tough, but I really like this thing. I'm excited about the ore plate Pangolin. It doesn't go in every red deck. I don't think it necessarily goes in red white or red. Well, red green it probably goes in. Red black maybe. I don't know. Blue red almost for sure because they're making a lot of artifacts. Pain for all. 2 in a red enchantment. Enchant creature you control. When this ore enters, enchanted creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target. Whenever enchanted creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each opponent. So I'm giving this a lot of respect. A 3 mana bite spell is not that good, but I do think that the fact that it makes it hard for your opponent to block the creature afterwards, I think that's relevant enough. It being an enchantment is relevant enough that I'm giving it a decent amount of respect, but not I'm not gonna be over respecting it. You know, I think this is a fine card, but I don't love it. Like it's probably worse than this Pangolin, to be honest with you. Like genuinely, I think I would take Pangolin over this in most spots. Like that's how I feel right now. Now it feels close, which is why they're in the same tier. Like I feel like you could convince me either way, but I'm not that excited. Plasma Bolt. Single red for another sorcery speed interaction spell. Deals 2 damage to any target, and it has void. It deals 3 damage instead of a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn. I like this a lot. We've just seen sorcery bites be bad, like kind of medium to bad for so long now though that I'm wary of it. Chain lightning coming to mind here. I do think that it is that easy to enable to a certain extent. Um, I don't know. The ability to deal 3 is so nice, but this isn't Torch the Tower, right? Like Torch the Tower was great. This is like not that. So I'm kind of like it's going to be fine, but I mean it does go face, I suppose. I like it. I just don't love it. Possibility Technician. 2 in a red, 3/3. Whenever this or another Kavu enters, exile the top card of your library for as long as that card remains exiled. You may play it if you control a Kavu, and you can warp it for 1 in a red. Yeah, I mean, this is good. It's a good value 2-drop. I could even just move this up to tier 1. It's just easy to take early. There's some number of Kavus, I imagine. I could look it up, but I refuse. That doesn't really matter that much. It does matter a little bit, but not that much. It's just a good card, right? Like at 3 mana, you can warp and then you could be like, okay, well now I know that I've hit a land, which is what's gonna happen 40% of the time. On turn 4, I can like play this and then play my land, and then I've already got my value, and then I've got another thing coming. Like this just looks like a good value card to me. Very very easy to take, and I think tier 1 would be appropriate. Uh, so I could just move it up there. Not like not a hit you over the head rate tier 1, but just a good solid card. And I think I will move it up actually. It's obviously not as good as the Big Haste Dragon, but the point of the tier is not to tell you that it's as good as the Big Haste Dragon. It's to tell you that it's almost as good to take pack one pick one because it's a cheaper card as the Big Haste Dragon. So that's where that stands. Red Tiger Mechan, 3 in a red, 3/3 haste. It has a warp for 1 in a red. It's an artifact. I mean, I don't know. Everything with warp with haste, I don't know. Is it something or nothing? I think tier 5 is a bit rich. I think that's a bit too far. That's probably a bridge too far here. 4 mana 3/3 haste is really bad. So warp really has to be doing a lot here. But I guess it's an artifact that enters the battlefield multiple times. There's things that care about that. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. Tier 4 it is. And indeed. Remnant Elemental, 1 in a red, 0/4 with reach and landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. I put this in tier 5. I don't know. Maybe that's shameful. I just like it doesn't like the reach doesn't do anything. Like obviously it's like, oh well, you could land or token on your opponent's turn to block. Okay, I guess having to spend 2 mana to make your 2-drop block seems not good to me. And then like I don't know if you actually cash this in, your opponent can be like, all right, well I'll chump this turn, and then next turn you don't have any more lander tokens. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know. This thing's got to prove it to me. Basically, it's got to prove it. It doesn't go in like every red deck. It only goes in decks with a bunch of landers, and I'm gonna have to see it to believe it. Rig for War. 1 in a red, instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike and reach until end of turn. So we have the 1 mana Trinket uncommon that's way better than this. Uh, we've had the first strike thing on this, like this type of card many times, and it's just never been good. So I don't expect it to be good. It's not like completely unplayable, but if you're taking it before pick like 9 at the earliest, it's like too high. So yeah, I don't even. Yeah. Roving Actuator. 3 in a red for a 3/4 with Void. When it enters, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So, kind of an interesting, like, 4-drop artifact thing that's like a spell recursion, whatever. It's kind of like worse than it looks. Like, it's kind of like, oh, it's a thing that casts your spells from your graveyard, but it's like worse than all of the text on it generally combines for. Void is rather easy to enable, but it's not so easy that it's completely trivial. And getting everything to like be in the right place at the right time is going to be tougher than you'd think, I think, in most spots. But I think this is okay. I'm not excited about it. It doesn't excite me. Ruinous Rampage. 1 red red sorcery. Deals 3 damage to each opponent. Exile all artifacts with mana value 3 or less. Sort of a pure sideboard card. There's just not going to be enough artifacts to justify this. Rust Harvester. Single red for a 1/1 with menace. And you can pay 2 and tap to exile an artifact from your graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, then it deals damage equal to its power to any target. I mean, this is kind of sick. I put it in tier 3 primarily because it's a 1 mana 1/1 that does nothing until you have an artifact card in your graveyard. But it's like really insane once you have one. I should move this up. This thing, it's a 1-drop that your opponent basically has to remove. Because if they don't remove it, and you have any way of getting an artifact into your graveyard, this thing is just an immediate house. And it has menace too. Menace is quite good. I mean, I don't know. The Menaces doesn't really matter that much, but like it's you really only need to have the threat to do this like once, and like you can just yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a one drop that gets in early, and then in the mid to it's an artifact in the mid to late game. You can keep sacrificing. Like if you have an artifact in your graveyard, which is probably gonna happen, it keeps doing stuff. One way to get artifacts in your graveyard: slide drill scrapper. Single red for a 1/2, 2 and tap. Sacrifice another artifact or land. Draw a card. I love this card. This thing seems sweet. I originally had it in tier 2, and then I was like, all right, let's pump the brakes. Let's pump the brakes on this. It's just a 1 mana 1/2 that needs help. But, I mean, it's doing it all. The fact that this is an artifact itself is really, really important because it means it plays better in like multiples. Um, and the fact that it sacrifices lands is not irrelevant. We had the Scrap Chomper in March of the Machines, which was not very good, but that was it didn't sacrifice artifacts, and the set didn't like it was not it didn't have any types, and it didn't sacrifice artifacts. This has types and sacrifice artifacts, and for that reason I've rated it rather high actually. This is kind of a key thing that's going on here. Systems override. 2 in a red, sorcery, gain control of target artifact or creature until end of turn, untap that permanent. It gains haste until end of turn. If it's a spacecraft, put 10 charge counters on it. If you do, remove 10 charge counters from it at the beginning of the next end step. Yeah, I mean, I like this. So this is just active treason, but it also hits spacecrafts. There's a lot of like good, great sack outlets in the set, just in general. Um, so I think this is going to be pretty good. I think that even in just base red, there's a lot of ways to sacrifice stuff. Just taking a spacecraft for a turn and having it get to attack early, it's kind of powerful. They have pretty powerful attack triggers frequently. So I do actually kind of like this. Now this is about as high as you can rate an active treason. There has been one instance where it was actually better than this, and that was in Wilds of Eldraine. Um, but even then, you didn't really need to like take it that high. So this, I think, is going to be fine. I think it's going to be decent. But again, the draftability is on the lower end. Tonic Steadfast Second. 2 red red 3/5. Other creatures you control have haste. Artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand have warp for 2 in a red. This effect is like very powerful because it gives warp to stuff that shouldn't have it, which is probably good. Like it's probably a good thing to have. Now it is only a 4 mana 3/5 that just dies, but it gives everything else you have haste. Your opponent has to remove it. 5 toughness is pretty high. Like it's a pretty high number of toughness. Now, one of the things I will say is I had this like you can I think it being lower is a fine thing to say. I just think warp is powerful. That's kind of my take. Um, it works with all the like spacecraft. I actually don't know how that works. Yeah, I don't know what happens if you warp in the spacecraft. I guess it's just an artifact and you get to read whatever. Anyway, I feel like that's quite good. I don't know. I'm optimistic about this. I'm not so optimistic that I would put it in tier 1, but I think it's a fine card. I think it's good. Terminal Velocity. 4 red red sorcery. You put an artifact or creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That permanent gains haste. Whenever this permanent leaves the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its mana value to each creature at the beginning of your end step. Sacrifice this permanent. This is way too situational. You're basically 2 for 1ing yourself to wrath the board and maybe deal some damage. Not that excited about this. Terrapact Intimidator. 1 in a red, 2/1. When it enters, target opponent may have you create 2 lander tokens. If they don't, put 2 +1/+1 counters on this creature. So you're either getting a 2 mana 4/3 or you're getting a 2/1 that makes 2 landers. So both of those are insanely good. So yeah, I mean this card's just great. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it. This is basically just a 2 mana 4/3. That's kind of it because that's what your opponent's going to choose basically every single time. All right, Territorial Bruntar. 4 red red for a 6/6. With Reach, it has Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, exile the cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card this turn. Yeah, I mean, it's a good landfall ability. It's just not, it's a 6-drop. There's other things with 6 that cost, that cost 6 that are good. This is fine, but not that exciting. So, uh, yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this. It's a 6-drop and just dies to whatever, but it is good when it actually um, does something, right? Which is not all the time. Vault Guard Trooper. 4 and a red for a 5/5. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. I don't love this, but I actually don't mind it. I think I like the tap down effects that are more expensive, like this one, because you're more likely to have a spacecraft in play to actually tap stuff down. Like this on turn 5, you've probably already played a spacecraft at some point. They usually cost like 4 or 5 mana, so you could play that, then you play this, and then you get to discard your hand and draw 2 cards. Seems pretty good. Like, are you going to be able to block? No, but blocking is for weak mental. So, like, I think this is gonna be able to be able to actually activate its ability pretty frequently, like more frequently than you might initially think. Now, I've only rated it in tier 3 because I do think it is just a 5-mana 5/5, and that's not great. But I think this ability is going to be on in a lot of games. Now, red spacecraft are kind of bad, so this being red, perhaps not the best color for it to be in. Except for the rares. Obviously, the rares are good. 2 mana red for a spacecraft. When it enters, it deals damage equal to the number of artifacts you control the target creature and opponent controls, and it gets 6 or more counters. It is a 4/3 with flying. This looks great to me. You're going to have a lot of artifacts in your deck, especially your red deck. It deals at least 1 damage. If it deals 2 or 3, you're probably really happy with it. You would ideally like to be dealing 3. That's achievable, I think, in most games. The 1-drop being an artifact means that this will work frequently. Um, yeah, like this a lot. Don't have anything to really say about it. Weapons manufacturing. 1 and a red for an enchantment. When a non-token artifact you control enters, create a colorless artifact token named Munitions. When this token leaves, it deals 2 damage to any target. So you're playing an enchantment that does nothing, and the enchantment requires you to have other ways to sacrifice the things to actually have them do something. But there are lots of ways to sacrifice things, as we've seen. There are many, many ways to do this. It's not like it's completely impossible. So I do think this will be this will have a thing that you can do with it, and it'll be very fun. And I will definitely try. I would like to try this at some point, but I do not think it is insanely good. But all the red 1-drop common and this, just build the house out of that and ship it, man. 3 copies of this, bunch of red 1-drops, ship. That's it, man. That's the way to win. Weft Stalker Ardent. 2 in a red for a 2/3. Whenever another creature or artifact you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent and has warp for 1. So we had this in MH3, the 2/3 artifact guy that did this. I actually think this is maybe better than the MH3 card. The MH3 card was in MH3, so the power level was higher than this set, so it performed not amazing. It was okay, but it wasn't great. This, I think, plus the warp ability of just being like, okay, well, I'm gonna make like 2 things this turn, warp this in, get the 2 pings, whatever. I like it. Warp is inherently good. I think this is a fine 3-drop. I'm not over the moon about it, as you can see by the rating, but I think it's decent. Zookeeper Mechan. 1 in a red for a 1/3 artifact creature that taps to add red, and you can pay 6 in a red to give target creature you control +4/+0 until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. I really like this. This is good. Mana dorks typically are rated more low than this one. This is a high rating for a 2 mana 1/3 that taps for mana. It is in red instead of green, we just red just does has these now. I don't know. It's not. I didn't. Wasn't my decision. Um, but it's an artifact. I think this is good. Like I'm very happy. Like I really like red's core of commons here. Like there's a lot of like artifact stuff going on. It all seems like it kind of works together a little bit. Um, the one thing I will say is the uncommon spacecraft look a little bit bad. So that makes me think that red white is going to be bad. But the common artifact stuff, like the stuff that'll work in like Grixis space, is quite good, and I think that's it on red. That's it. That's all I got to say about red. Thank you for sticking around. If you enjoyed, there is additional set review content on the channel. Please feel free to check that out. I'll see you next time.